My name is Doreen, and this is Untold with Doreen. And today we get to have a sit down with one of our very interesting guests, who happens to be a mother, a retired teacher, a grandmother, and a very important person in society. So, before further ado, let me introduce my guest today. Okay, hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, so you could introduce yourself briefly.
I'm called Rose Soita, born before independence in a village called Huiroro, Kimilili, constituency currently, Bungoma County. I grew up in that village. I started primary school at Kimilili Girls RC Primary School. Later on, moved to Kibingei RC Primary School, which was now mixed. During our days, primary school were paying fees, and that fees was in form of building fund, and was payable mainly by a parent. So while at Community Girls, it meant my parent was to pay fees at Community Girls for us, the girls, and at Community RC Boys for the boys. Now it became difficult, and that's why we moved to Kibingei RC, and fees was now paid once for all of us, both girls and boys. From there, I moved on after my KCP to a national school called Mary Hill Girls Secondary School in Thika. After my Form 4, I proceeded for my A-levels to Thompson Falls Secondary School those days, a mixed high school. But currently, the school is called Durumo Boys High School. We now have Durumo Boys and Durumo Girls. But originally, it was Thompson Falls Secondary High School. That is where I was for my A-level, then proceeded on to college at Kenya Science Teachers College, where I trained as a mathematics, physics, and physical education teacher. Generally, I grew up in the village, and during our days, to us, life was interesting, but to a child of today, it was very difficult, because you'd go to school without breakfast, and you'd go without lunch, and you're just okay. You'll come back to have the evening meal.
Are you sure you are okay? Without breakfast and lunch?
Yes, but we never used to feel anything. That was the funny bit of that life at that time. When you are lucky, we would carry a lunch, and the lunch we used to carry was boiled dry maize. No, not kitheri, just maize alone, pure maize alone, no beans. And sometimes if you are to have a coin, which could be a 5 cent, you would buy a piece of cane. And the interesting part also was, you could even chew the leftovers of the cane which people have at June. So you recycle, and then you become okay, and you go back to class. And then going to the farm was the order of the day. We'd go along with our parents to the farm, and even sometimes, because our family was not a well-to-do family, we'd go for something called kibarua. You go kulima laini, mpate pesa, mlete, situmike na wazazi. That was the kind of life.
So if you could go to do kibarua for people, how much would you get? How much were you getting paid?
Wow, that time, it was so little. That time, even 5 cents was very valuable. 10 cents was very valuable. You could go to the shop and buy even bread and sugar with 5 bob of those days. That is it. We were dealing with just coins. There was a 5 cent, and there was something, I don't know how to call it in Kiswahili or English, it was something called esimir. And it also had value. That is it.
Wow.
And the coins were round with a hole in the middle. So you put them, and you can even tie across your neck so that it doesn't get lost. Wow. That was the life. Yes.
That's quite interesting. sentiments from Mrs. Rose Soita. And so at least we've got to know who is Rose at this particular point. Now, on the next step, we're going to just dive into her career life. And we just want to know what really inspired you to become a teacher.
Okay, before I say about that, just go back briefly about my family. We are I was born in a family of 8 people, 2 brothers and 6 sisters. I happen to be the 5th born.
Wow.
And we were very poor. Luckily, I must say, I'm the only one in that family who made it through. Not because of the efforts of my parents, but I'll appreciate my being, I would say, a bit bright. And then a sponsor picked me up and took me through school. That is the last born brother of my father. When he saw my efforts in school, he picked me up. And that's why in the whole family, I just came up. Now, during our days, there was nothing like career guidance and counseling. What will happen is, after you have finished school, the next level you are called, you proceed. So, after my Form 6, I was called to Kenya Science. And that's how I found myself to be a teacher. Just that. It is where you are called. And somehow, I found it interesting. I loved it. Because I like interacting with people, and given my background, whereby I was assisted, I also like assisting people. And so I felt that it was the right career for me because that was the place I could also easily assist people, especially those who are needy. Yes.
Okay. And in your career path, like what did you enjoy most about the teaching? We hear that part of helping others, being blessed to bless. So
now, what I enjoyed most, first of all, just being a classroom teacher and taking part in co-curricular activities. You know, being a classroom teacher, I just enjoyed. When I teach, and I feel now the students are saying they are okay. I just loved that. And then also, when I would go out with the students for the games, the sports, in choir, incidentally, I would sometimes lose my head. I find myself singing along with the students. There are times, like even during coaching, I was always on the field with the students, so that it became difficult for somebody who didn't know me to know among these people who is the teacher and who are the students, because I'll just play along with them, whether they are girls or boys. I'll be on the field with them. That is what I just loved that part. And I also loved students who could put in effort, students who don't give up despite the difficulties, despite the challenges. I just loved that.
oh, good to hear. So how many schools have you taught so far, and when did you begin teaching?
Now, I left college in September 1983. I was posted to Misiko Girls. And I was very happy. But when I went there, I got a sister, a nun, who was the head. That time we were calling them headmistresses. When I entered her office, she asked me one question. Are you married? I said no. Then she told me, come next week on Monday, I'll assign you duties. So when I went next week on Monday, it's like she was waiting for me. I didn't enter the office. She just gave me the letter at the doorway and said that you have been transferred to Nyangori Boys.
Yeah. Why?
So later I learned that they never allowed single ladies to teach in those schools run by nuns. So there I went to Nyangori Boys. My experience at Nyangori Boys was not the best. At that time, Nyangori Boys had a lot of indisciplined cases. And as a young girl from college, those boys there, especially the A-level boys, were seeing me as just a girl. And they were not imagining how a small girl like me could teach mathematics and physics. So it's like they were making life very difficult for me. So one time they rounded us up after parade and like they wanted to riot. So they held us in the staff room, surrounded with all sorts of weapons. That was 1983. I think around September, October. That's an experience. I got scared. By the time the police came to rescue us, for us to come to parade, when we were rescued, I never went to that parade. I just walked to the road because it's nearby. I never went to the house where I was staying. And home, Kimilili. The following day, I reported at Moi Girls Kamsinga.
Without a letter?
Without a letter. I reported without a letter. Unfortunately, the headmistress that time, Mrs. Ndinyo, was not in school. The deputy, Mrs. Okada Paul Lois, was in school. So I told her, I've been posted here. So she assigned me duties. And I started teaching. So when the headmistress came back, she was told, she came back on our weekend, so, we have got a very good math physics teacher. So she was so wondering.
How?
So she waited for me on Monday. So I went on Monday because I was coming from home. I went to class, taught, and then I went to explain to her my situation. Then I explained to her, said, just relax, continue teaching. And she went back to Nairobi and came back with my transfer letter from Nyangori boys to Moi Girls. Then that is how I now moved. And she organized for my luggage. Herself, the headmistress, Ms. Ndinyo, organized to bring my luggage from Nyangori boys. Herself. Then I taught at Moi Girls Kamsinga up to the end of 1985. Then I got married. And in January, I taught in Moi Girls Kamsinga up to, that is December, that's third term, 1984. Then January 1985, I was transferred, or I sought for transfer to Narok. That was Narok Girls Secondary School, which is currently called Oletipis Girls.
Why did you ask for that transfer?
My husband was working there.
Oh.
My husband was working in Narok. And thank God I was granted the transfer. And I went to Narok Girls, which is the current Oletipis Girls. I taught at Oletipis Girls for, that is up to 1987.
Those are 3 years.
3 years. Then my husband was transferred to Mumias. Again, I got transferred and moved to Mumias. Boys, St. Peter's Mumias Boys High School. So I taught at St. Peter's Mumias Boys High School. So while there, again, in 1991, my husband was transferred to Marsabit. So I thought enough of movement was enough. And because we had bought land in Naitiri, so I now sought for transfer to St. Patrick's Naitiri Boys. I came to Naitiri Boys in 1991. Yes. Where I now taught from 1991 up to 2005. Then in May 2005, I was appointed as a principal and posted to Friends School Nigeria, where I taught up to 2019, and then I asked for early retirement because I had gotten an opportunity at the county government as the member of the County Public Service Board.
Which
My
county
contract,
government?
Bungoma County Government, as a member of the Public Service Board, a contract of 6 years. If I was to remain in teaching service, I was supposed to have retired officially from the TSC in March 2021. But I asked for early retirement and I left TSC with effect from 1st of November 2019.
That's great. Would like just to know, what is your biggest challenge while teaching? The biggest challenge you go to encounter as a teacher?
The biggest challenge I ever encountered as a teacher was, I must say, I had very little problem with boys' schools. But the biggest challenge I ever came across was in the girls' schools. Girls have their unique challenges, and sometimes the parents tend to be overprotective. Some parents, not all. Some parents tend to be overprotective, so it becomes very difficult to correct. And also, girls are very cheeky. Girls are generally cheeky. That is what I can say.
Hey, interesting. And the most memorable moment in the classroom?
As a classroom teacher.
Yes, as just a teacher in general, the most
Just
memorable moment. Yeah.
Most memorable moments were when I would teach, and after the KCSE results, physics emerges as the best. I always remember, after so many years, I left St. Patrick's Naitiru Boys in 2005.
Yeah.
But up to now, my record of physics still stands.
Hey.
Proud of that. Proud of that. In fact, it's only last year during KCSE that my record was broken. And the chief principal called me. You know, they had maintained that record. The chief principal called me and told me, Madam, finally your record has been broken.
And that is 24 years down the line.
Yes.
You joined, is it 24 or 31? You joined Naitiru Boys in 1991.
91, yes.
So that is 34 years down the line.
Yes. So he called me and said, Madam, your record has finally been broken. So I said, Chief Principal, Mr. Kiminisu, I said, I am buying the teachers chicken.
Hey.
Not only the physics teachers. I said it was teamwork. If it were only the physics teachers, they will not have money. Somebody must have given them competition.
Yeah.
That was always my most memorable, and I'm so proud of that.
Wow. Okay, so what experience has stood with you that stood out during your teaching journey? Either student experience, teacher experience, non-teaching staff experience, having actually been a principal. Yeah.
Yeah, what has stood out with me, and I think even when you walk in the village, people can still recall my contribution in education, especially to the needy.
Yeah.
Because I would walk into the villages, I get children who are needy but wish to go to school. And I would get them to school and find ways of them remaining in school. And then until they get to they're through with the education, those who qualify for the next level, I'll still follow them up and try to organize for fundraising to enable them to continue with their education. That is what. In fact, I'm still in touch with most of my students, and I'm proud of them. Yes.
That is really great. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with part 2 of Mrs. Rose Soita's teaching journey, career life, and everything.
And before you go to part 2, I'm also proud to say that CPA, His Excellence Fernandez Barasa, was my student.
Wow.
He was my very good mathematics student at St. Patrick's Night.
I hope he's watching this one. Kama hawatch, mumfikishie ya watch. We'll be right back with part 2 of this video.